Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Jennifer Duke. Despite all the talk around AI and ChatGPT, it seems that uptake of the technology might have actually stalled. CPA Australia, the country's leading professional accounting body, has released its annual business technology report. They're looking at the use of technology within businesses across the region. And there are some real concerns over the safe and secure use of AI. Gavin Ord is the Senior Manager of Business and Investment Policy for CPA Australia. Gavin, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks for having me back on.
So were you surprised at all that the uptake of AI has stalled in your report?
Well, given the publicity that AI has had, particularly since ChatGPT was launched in November last year, we are surprised. The survey showed that 55% of businesses used AI in the last 12 months. That's actually the same result as in 2022. So we would have thought, yes, the result would be higher. But then when we talk to members, we find that, yes, individually, people are experimenting with ChatGPT, but businesses themselves are more cautious about, some businesses are more cautious about the technology.
And is that caution behind the stall, do you think? Are there sort of some other factors there that are slowing down the uptake?
So I think there's three things. From a business point of view, it's definitely caution about the open source nature of ChatGPT, that you should not be using it to put in confidential information. So that's the primary one. And businesses are trying to work out how to use it safely and securely. Two, I think businesses are still sort of working out what are the right AI tools for their business. And I think for business, ChatGPT is not necessarily the right tool. And three, we know that at the micro end, the very small business end of the market, they just don't have the time to consider how to use AI appropriately.
And people who are listening might not be aware, but we've actually worked together before because I used to work for CPA. And one of the things that we always talked about all the time was digital transformation strategies, getting businesses to grasp that digital innovation. So what does a transformation strategy look like? Why is it important? And why are they less common for small businesses?
So first of all, digital transformation strategy, we find that most businesses have one. And we find that businesses that do have one are actually more likely to be profitable. So the digital transformation strategy is something which just sort of sets out how the business is going to move from its current state, its current technology state, to a new technology state. So it's not necessarily that complicated. But if you are thinking about how to implement a strategy, you're not certain, obviously go and seek advice of a professional. But the main thing is it sets out how you're going to move from where you are to where you want to be. And as I said before, those who do it are more likely to be profitable. At the small scale, going back to your question, and as you said, we've worked a lot on the small business side of things. For small businesses, they're just very time poor, they're resource poor, they don't necessarily have all the knowledge of what's going on. So many of them don't even have a strategic plan, let alone digital transformation plan. That doesn't mean they're not tech savvy. It just means they haven't got a plan to move from where they are to where they want to go.
Gavin, is there a role for government here to help smaller businesses get a plan, figure it out, use AI, things like that?
I think there's some role. There's no need for large-scale government intervention, but this clearly is an issue that smaller businesses are less tech savvy overall than larger businesses. We look at last financial year, the government had a technology investment boost that ended. We need policies like that encourage tech investment. We also need policies that encourage businesses to go and seek professional advice, which includes in the technology space, because as I said before, there's a strong connection between tech investment, tech strategy, and profitability.
And part of that probably comes back to having the right tech skills. Is there an upskilling piece in this picture?
Look, it's a really interesting question because we did ask in the survey around tech talent and the shortage of tech talent. First of all, I would say it's not an Australian specific issue. It's a global tech talent shortage. And the overwhelming majority of respondents said they are experiencing a technology talent shortage. Secondly, and probably positive, is that tech shortage is not necessarily meaning businesses are cancelling tech projects. They instead are finding other ways to deliver tech projects. The survey shows that the most popular way to overcome this current tech shortage is to try and upskill their current staff. So in terms of government policy, yes, there is the current skills boost. That's one policy which is trying to encourage businesses to upskill their staff. The shortcoming in that particular policy is it has to be training by a TAFE or a university, for example, but a lot of the tech training is actually run by the tech vendors themselves. So they don't necessarily get that boost of tax deduction.
Stay with me, Gavin. We'll be back in a minute. I'm talking to Gavin Ord from CPA Australia. So one part of this where I feel like the skills shortage can't necessarily be trained up in-house, so you might correct me, is when it comes to cybersecurity, and your report looked at cybersecurity as well. Is there a continued ramping up in the focus on cybersecurity? Are the risks increasing?
The risks are increasing, and I'll probably give 3 bits of advice to small business. First, you are a target of cyber criminals. 2, you are a target of cyber criminals. And 3, you are a target of cyber criminals. So you can't just assume because you're small you won't be attacked. But what the survey does show is that, yes, cybersecurity is a major focus for many businesses, which is good. But also cybersecurity is not just about technology. As you know, Jen, a lot of the cybersecurity problems are people-based. That they inadvertently get sucked in by a phishing attack or some sort of other sort of scam. So developing cybersecurity talent is not necessarily just about the technology side. It's also about all people in your business having that cybersecurity mentality, that sort of professional skepticism when they get that email requesting them to change the banking details for an invoice.
That's a great point. Do you think there's a role here for cyber insurance as well?
Cyber insurance is one part of it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the most important part. Just because you have house insurance doesn't mean then you don't lock the front door. So you still have to invest in your cyber security technology and the people skills around cyber security.
And one of the interesting findings in the report is around the tech expectations over the next 12 months. And it looks like there's a decline in the number of businesses expecting to implement those major tech initiatives over the next year. Why is that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something that sort of we thought about quite a bit ourselves. We tend to think that COVID brought forward a lot of tech investment. So we jumped all onto Teams. There's a lot of tech investment brought forward during the COVID period. So I think the investment that might be happening in the next 12 months has actually already happened. Secondly, obviously, the economy is slowing in Australia in particular, and businesses are taking a more cautious approach. So that we are seeing some of the ABS stats are showing investments are down. So I think there's 2 things. There's the economy, and that a lot of tech investment was brought forward during COVID.
And as you well know, businesses are often in this situation of weighing up between what they can afford to do, what they can't afford to do, and sort of deciding on that spectrum. Where would you put sort of tech innovations in that category?
Look, I think all investment you need to run through a return on investment lens, regardless of whether it's tech or otherwise. Sometimes that can be hard with some brand new tech, but things like AI, it's not brand new. AI has been around for a long time. So you can do that return on investment calculation, or at least provide a very good guess. But what our research shows, and you mentioned the small business survey we did earlier when you worked at CPA Australia, it shows that tech does provide quite a big boost to business performance and business profitability. So I think it should really be up there for many businesses. Obviously, it's a business by business proposition, but overall, our data shows that tech is something that businesses should really be focused in on, because our data shows it does provide, in many instances, a good return on investment.
Gavin, that was fabulous. Thank you very much for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thanks for having me on, Jen.
And that was Gavin Ord, Senior Manager of Business and Investment Policy for CPA Australia. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's best business podcast. I'm Jennifer Duke, Economics Correspondent for Capital Brief, and filling in for Sean Elmer. Have a great day.